Hello and welcome to a special post-Christmas edition of Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Not a whole lot of basketball action to talk about, Damo, so we might have to pad it out with some Christmas talk and New Year's talk, but even New Year's has been cancelled, so you won't be heading out anywhere for that. But we're back here on the show. We'll talk some NBL business. There's a lot going on despite not a lot of on-court action, so thanks to Hoop 7 for making this possible. We'll hear from the scoring machine, Sean Reddick, during this show as well. But I'm Chris Pike. Merry Christmas to everybody. Damian Martin. How's things?
Yeah, Merry Christmas. It's still that interim between Christmas and New Year's where you don't know what the day is, you don't know what the time is, you don't look at your watch. It's been great, to be honest. So I've still got to work. I should be purely on the phone. I'd have no idea what the inside of our office looks like right now. I've been avoiding it at all costs and enjoying the little bit of sport we have. And then I get excited for a bit of cricket. It's over in 2.5 days. So no, a lot of time in my neighbour's pool. Yep. We don't have a pool, but I think our neighbour gave us a fake offer of, hey, the kids I've got 2 daughters, the girls can always come around and use the pool whenever they like. And he showed me how to get in there. Yep. And last 3 days we've been there 3 from 3. So appreciate that to my neighbour. Oh. But yeah, pool, way too much food, afternoon naps. Can't go wrong this time of year.
Now, for those listeners not in Perth, Damo, can you give people some idea of how hot Christmas Day was?
Oh, it's disgustingly hot. And yeah, Christmas, Boxing Day, it's been high 30s every single day. And yeah, I'm dreading my next power bill because I know that aircon has been on way longer than it should be. But when you can only go to the pool, kind of pre 10 a.m. and then after 4 p.m.
Oh, you're frying.
It's even too hot to be in the pool. And then, it's been warm out west.
So imagine if you were on Christmas morning, you'd gone up and gone to your in-laws for the morning, and then you were driving back home, and then you managed to run out of petrol at a traffic lights. And then you had a look through the car and you left your wallet at home as well. Oh. So you could see a petrol station down the road that you were planning on stopping at, but you couldn't buy anything from there anyway because you didn't have your wallet. You're sitting in the car with the traffic lights. You're just covered in sweat by this point.
Did you say it's Christmas Day?
Christmas morning, yeah. Or maybe it's by about midday by this time. So imagine how hot it is in your car. And for some reason, the cars behind you don't catch on that you've got your hazard lights on, so they just start queuing up and start beeping their horns and abusing you and telling you to move, but you can't go anywhere.
Now, that's why you kept calling. Sorry for ignoring the calls, mate.
So, it's not quite ideal, but I managed to get back home, and I had all my food.
Hang on, so you've had to pull over?
I didn't even get to pull over. My car just conked out the lights.
on the freeway?
No, where were you? It was on.
Obviously not freeway. There's a petrol station.
I think it was on Wanneroo Road, the turn where you're turning onto Hepburn Ave. Uh-huh. If anyone knows Perth, the Kingsway Shopping Centre is on the other side of the road. So it's quite a busy intersection. Not much protection from the heat. It's quite hot. And then you just got to wait for someone to come bring you some money and give you a lift down to the petrol station. You got to go back and fill up your car. And
Merry Christmas.
And then at the same time, I was cooking food for my whole family back at home too. So I had to get home to my food, and that was all cooking while I was out at the in-laws. I had to go back home to then get back to cooking the food. I was quite a steaming mess by that point, as you can imagine, Damo.
That's an incredible Christmas. I had no idea you went through that.
And you get no sympathy because it's my fault.
Well, you see the red light. Did the red light come on?
Of course it did.
But I loves tempting it. That's one of my favourite things in life.
It's great when you make it home and you did make it, but it's not so great
until
when you don't.
Your wife gets in the car and says, "How long's the red light been on?"
Exactly, but it's not so great when you don't make it.
Almost. So close.
And I've got another, with our guest later, the scoring machine, Sean Reddick. He thinks it was a good Christmas present, but I gave away some Christmas presents, which I'll reveal later in the show, and the reaction from those opening, the kids were okay, but the adults that opened these gifts probably weren't that appreciative, so stay tuned to the show later on to find out what they were. And the 3 kids were wearing their gift around the house on Christmas, so they liked it, but I'm not sure if the adults are going to get much use out of it, Damo. So
maybe a donation to South Coast.
Possibly. But as we said, we only ended up with two games last week in the NBL, which we'll talk about a little bit. We've got some feedback. You've been calling for feedback, Damo, on our show.
Please reach out.
So here we go. I don't know if I'm not sure if this was the feedback you were hoping for. So we talked a lot about the Deng Vic Law incident last week. So David Knight got in touch. He's a big fan of our show. So thank you for listening, firstly, David, and please keep listening. So he's directed this to you, Damo. Hey, fan of your show, just a correction on your Deng flop saga. They both got techs, Law and Deng, but the free throws were for the common foul on Deng. Law should have been ejected, even though a soft headbutt still led with the head. It was a great distraction by the Wildcats fans and Wilbur. but more needs to be said about not leading with the head. Check Sobey's ejection in the grand final of 2018. Still love your show. Keep up the great work. But I don't know if he saw things how you did, Damon. Maybe he's a Bullets fan.
You know what? I've got a question for you, Pike. You're reading this, and yeah, thanks, David. We do appreciate all feedback, so keep it coming. If that wasn't played in Perth, because it was one of the loudest atmospheres I've ever been in, and so I was doing the courtside commentary that night. You've got Wilbur, the Wildcats mascot, on the floor reenacting the flop, making a whole big scene. Crowd was in hysterics, laughing, booing, cheering, you name it, it was happening. Had the exact same actions happened in Brisbane, do you think it had something to do with the outcome? Was the crowd's reactions and because it's got shown over and over and over again on the big screen that everyone kept laughing and booing every time that the flop occurred. But maybe that did have something to do with the outcome of Law. Do you think it was? Do you think Law should have got ejected, as David said, as per a la Sobey in 2017-18? Or do you think it was handled the right way?
I actually think the referees got it right. I don't think the headbutt was strong enough to deserve an ejection. I think a tech foul was fine for that. I think the flop was fair enough to get a tech foul for that. So I actually think them both getting a tech foul was probably fair enough. I still don't think the headbutt was strong enough to deserve an ejection. You obviously never want to have any contact with your head, but when it's that soft of, I know you don't want to encourage other people to do it, but I still don't think you need an ejection. I don't think Deng needed to be ejected either for what he did. I think the embarrassment he got was worse than anything. I think a fine for Law in the end, and I guess it was a suspended sentence or whatever the end result was. I think that was fair enough. I actually think the end result was probably what it needed to be.
So techs cancel each other out. The free throws were for the common goal. Thank you for that correction. Common foul, sorry. So in the end, Brisbane still benefited, and it should be how it is, because obviously it started with the headbutt. So good feedback, David. I think you're.
Yeah, I mean, if Deng didn't flop, then they would have got the extra foul for the tech on Vic as well. So that it was Deng that cost them the punishment that Vic actually received for the headbutt. So I think it was fair enough result, but I wouldn't mind more of this feedback to put Damo on the spot. So keep it coming.
Yeah, well, I didn't agree with the ejection for Sobes in 2017.
Ultimately that probably decided the championship.
Exactly right. So I didn't agree with that one. Glad
I didn't agree with Sobes' ejection at the start of the season either. That was pretty rough when he got ejected in round one as well.
It is, if you turn and swear at the ref in their face. I don't know what Bryce said, but that's his first and only ever tech foul as a pro athlete. Yep. But the second it was called, Bryce knew he was in the wrong. Yep. So whatever he said, he knew, okay, I'm getting a tech here. Best way to respond is basically go on a 10-0 run single-handedly. For Sobes, though, that's your second tee. You put yourself in that place. So a bit of it does fall on the player. It's that first tech. I know some people might be a bit cautious about where the second one is from a referee's perspective. But you got to remember, 2 techs and you're out of the game, and it's easy to fire away an F-bomb or something inappropriate in the heat of the moment.
Especially when you're in overtime, first game of the season, you're feeling the heat.
I hated seeing that. You want to see the best players out on the court, falls on both shoulders, players and refs. But Sobe said something, and I think straight away everyone knew. See you later, unfortunately.
He didn't have Joey Wright as his coach this time, though, so that could have even been more entertaining if he did. Now, the main talking point right now, Damo, we had a couple of games last weekend, but it's the COVID chaos. I mean, how would have you handled it when you were a player, preparing for a game? Say you're in the Wildcats' shoes, you head over to Adelaide to start a 6-week road trip, you're preparing to play on a Tuesday night, and then all of a sudden that game's cancelled. You end up finding out that you don't even probably go to Tasmania now. You have to head straight up to Cairns to prepare for an opponent you weren't preparing for to play on New Year's Eve. How would have you handled this situation, and how tough would it be on the players?
Look, I think a lot of it would have been addressed prior to even leaving, because the real adversity is the fact that they're on the road for 6.5 weeks. Sure. Now, who they play, that's Groundhog Day. You're going to have a scout, you're going to have game day shoot around, you passed it the night before. All of that is routine regardless of which city you're in. But it's just the fact that they're leaving for 6.5 weeks. So it's a matter of, hey, enjoy the mateship, the camaraderie. Enjoy getting a good sleep in for those who have young kids. And you can't fake it all. You know that you're just going to flat out miss your wife, you're going to miss your children, your partners, whoever it may be. You're going to wish you were home for New Year's Eve, whatever it is. Push that aside, focus on the positives, because at the end of the day, you get to be on the road with good mates, food's provided for you, good accommodation, playing a game you love. Focus on the positives, and then when these little spinners get thrown your way every now and then, just deal with it, jump back on a plane and move on to the next game. Because, like you said, they thought they would have played Adelaide by now and preparing for a Brisbane on New Year's Eve. Instead, they're up in Cairns. So take it as it comes, because after 6.5 weeks, you don't have to go to an airport for quite some time and embrace that. So there's silver lining to everything. The Wildcats have always handled that type of thing really well because they always travel longer than every other team. For me, no one can compete with what the Breakers go through.
Yep.
So I don't care what any other team is doing. Just say, hey, New Zealand haven't been home and won't be home for another 3 or 4 months.
Well, again, this year, I mean, the New Zealand borders are closed again. It doesn't look like they will get back.
Yeah, I don't think they'll play a home game in New Zealand.
Yep.
So it's bad for some teams, but it's worse for one in particular.
I reckon the Webster brothers are about the happiest of anyone right now. They're very happy they got out of their Breakers contracts, I would have thought.
Yeah, they're playing basketball, travelling freely, got home games. Look, it's just one of those things. You want to play professional sport in this day and age, there's going to be adversity. The NBA, you got teams literally full of COVID. Not just games getting cancelled, but teams with players. So could be worse. It's just one of those things that unfortunately you can't control. So focus on what you can and look forward to it.
How would have you reacted when your games are cancelled? Say you're preparing for a game on a Wednesday night, you still think you're playing on a Thursday night, then all of a sudden, either on the Wednesday night or first thing Thursday morning, you find out your game's cancelled. How would you handle that?
Yeah, they're not robots. At the end of the day, the players would have been frustrated initially going, we've just flown out, technically 3 days earlier than they would have had to have left Perth had this game been cancelled with more notice. Instead, they're going to have to jump back on a plane. So there's that initial frustration and anger, but by the time you land in Cairns, in this circumstance, boom, as Trev would have said, flush down the toilet, move on, don't think about it again, and move forward. So that's how to be handled. I'd say by the time they landed in Cairns, done and dusted, let's enjoy being in the tropics and focus on the Taipans.
I think this whole situation, out of every team, I would have thought it's affecting, or it's come at the worst time possible for the Adelaide 36ers more than anybody. So their last game was back on December 18 when they got murdered by the Cairns Taipans up in Cairns. They lost by 26, I think it was in the end. But
I think you said it's the worst loss of the season so far.
And they were 40 points down with 3 minutes to go. And now, they don't play again now until January the 7th. So they've still got another, from now, 8 or 9 days before they play again. So it's going to be, you're getting close to a month before you get to play.
It feels longer than that in the players' heads after a loss like that.
I mean, how do you respond to a situation like that? Because the thing that you want to do the most after a loss like that is get back on the court as soon as you can. And they're going to be more than 3 weeks before they get to.
Well, they've got a combination of factors. If they're going through COVID protocol, they may not be on the court.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they've got to juggle the physical requirements to be able to play 40 minutes of NBL basketball whilst either in a hotel room or more than likely just at home, but whatever, they've got at-home facilities. But then the mental as well. So yes, it was a bad loss, but it was just one game. They are better than what they showed. So secondly, how can you kind of reinvigorate the players? Because typically a coach, you're going to watch it, you're going to feel horrible, you take it out on the court, you take it out on each other, you stay back, you get extra work in individually after training. You do that for the first 3 or 4 days after a bad loss, then you're preparing for the next game, you go out there, do whatever it takes to try and win, rectify the previous loss, move on. These guys can't do that. So CJ, this is his biggest hurdle so far. New head coach, after a loss, how does he take the lessons from that loss, instill it in the players to make them better players, but then have them physically and as much as anything mentally ready, because you can't just keep focusing on that because the mental drain will show over a 3-week period. So how do you get to have fun even if you can't be in front of each other with COVID protocols? So CJ's got a lot in his hands. The leaders in the group, I'm hoping they're sending through funny chats through their group chats, keeping it lighthearted, keeping it fun, motivating each other, making sure they're doing the work from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. in their house physically. And then having a bit of mental relief, a bit of banter, a bit of fun, especially this time of year where it's hard enough to focus on basketball with Christmas and New Year's and those fun things you like to be part of. Yeah,
I mean, there's other teams that have got it similar. So the Phoenix played their last game on December 18. They don't now play again until January the 8th. The Hawks have had a couple of their games cancelled already. So they last played December 19. They don't play again until January the 9th. We mentioned the 36ers. The Bullets are similar. So they last played December 19. They play again January the 9th. I mean, it's almost a mid-season break that no one planned for.
But the beauty of it, while we're all consumed with Christmas and everything that goes on this time of the silly season, once we're ready to go back into our workforce, our normal jobs, boom, there's basketball on every day. So I look forward to having basketball on Monday through Friday and then again on the weekend. So it's going to be more like that NBA schedule if we can get guys in and out of different cities with COVID. But touch wood, we're going to see every team still play their 28 regular season games, 14 at home, 14 away, except for New Zealand, unfortunately.
Now, the games we did have last weekend, so technically the Kings and the JackJumpers last Wednesday night was part of round 3, but we recorded our show last week before that game. So the Kings bounced back to beat the JackJumpers 83-71. Big fourth quarter in that game. Jarrell Martin came up big for the Kings. Obviously, they played again a couple of days later and it wasn't the same result for them, but that was an important win for them at home against Tasmania.
Huge win. I know I predicted the Kings in my top 4 in our first radio we've had this season episode, but the reality is they've been pretty disappointing. Now, I know they've had some injuries. It's been a bit disrupted, but I think we finally saw a little bit more of what the Kings are capable of. We're still yet to see the best of DJ Vasiljevic. He's coming back after a long injury. You know, we saw Wani Swaka-Labullock. I thought he was fantastic off the bench. And I just think the young group are now combining well with some of the older guys and the imports. So the chemistry is starting to develop because, they've still got a great roster, a good coaching staff, and capable of doing special things, but they needed to beat a JackJumpers team, and they took care of business.
They did. Then the JackJumpers got their second win of the season. They were back home on, it was Boxing Day, wasn't it, this game?
Yeah.
So they beat the Breakers. It wasn't easy, but they got the job done. The Breakers just couldn't make a shot in the end. That was the big difference. But I liked the game of Josh Adams. So up until this game, he'd been very much relying on his three-point shooting. It hadn't really been falling. He changed his game for this one and became more aggressive, attacked the basket, got to the foul line 11 times, and ultimately it was probably the main difference in the game.
Well, he was finally the aggressor.
Yep.
Like you said, I mean, getting to the free throw line for 11 attempts means you're more often than not attacking and attacking on the rim. I mean, you got that type of athleticism, those ball handling skills. You want to see that, even if it's just to get you going. I know there's been games where Bryce, for example, hasn't been shooting the ball well from the three-point line.
And he finished with 10 assists.
Exactly right. All of a sudden, he'll still have the ball in his hands as long, but instead of stopping and popping behind an on ball, he'll then hezzy, go by them and throw an alley-oop or kick out to an open shooter.
Well, just on Bryce, how many more assists would have he had in his career if you could make a shot that he passed it to?
Oh, I think I'm still third on the NBL for the Wildcats for highest shooting percentage in a season. I think McKay bumped me off. So let's just talk about that one season and ignore the other 10. Look, if he had Vic Law instead of me, he would have a lot more. Look, that's what great players do, is they find ways to stay involved in the game. For Adams, was getting to the free throw line. For Bryce, it's dropping 10 assists and then, feeling good.
I like the season Standouts having too. Standouts stepping up as captain of this team.
Yeah, he's shooting the ball well. He's aggressive. He's playing up and in defense. No, I think he got given the C next to his name, and he's really embraced it. And yeah, I know they've only got 2 wins so far, two out of their first 6. But every game, maybe one blowout, but all the other games, minus that Perth one, they've been competitive. Yep. And they'll get more wins as the season goes on. But I think Clint's been a big part of the couple they've got already. But he's had a very consistent season so far, and will continue to do so. Yeah,
and I feel for the Breakers. They couldn't make a shot in this game, and they just aren't having any luck. Then there was the Kings and United. Wasn't as bad for Sydney as the last game, obviously, against Melbourne, but they still didn't get the win. Melbourne way too good, and Caleb Agada, he might not have started the season great, but he's now putting himself in MVP calculations. This was a fantastic all-round game, and Melbourne have only got one import, and that might be all they need.
Agada, 24 points, 14 rebounds, 4 steals, 3 blocks, 3 assists. Yep. He was phenomenal at both ends of the court. Yeah, he is a star, and just looks like he's having fun out there as well. Yep. And they interviewed him, when Goulding went 7 3-pointers, and he was having a bit of fun about how well, he
said it was Steph Curry.
Very like Steph Curry-esque.
Yep.
He's just embracing his teammates, his role within that group, and I think he's understanding that yes, we've got a deep roster, yes, we're a championship team from last season, but hang on, I'm an import. I've actually got to go and put points on the board as well, and he was great. He was their best.
So that was it. That was it.
That's our 2 games.
So what we'll do with our awards this week, Damo. So firstly, the Damo Award, obviously for the best defensive player, and our Reddick Award for the best player of the year. We'll combine rounds 4 and 5,
I think so.
We'll still only have 4 games to choose from, but at least we'll find a winner. But thanks to the Damo Award, gee, with this heat right now, nothing better than an Everlast drink, would there?
Oh, it'd go down well. In stores now. Do love the team at Everlast, so go and check them out.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, when we'll come back, we'll hear from the scoring machine, Sean Reddick, Damo, and when you think of Sean, what comes to mind first? I mean, I know we see from the outside what he did on the court. What comes to mind from you as a teammate of his for 10 years?
Oh, the 2 things. The most elite player I've ever played alongside, insofar as did every single cliche 1%er you ever hear sports people talk about. Ice baths, diet, nutrition, sleep, extra work before and after training, weights, so on and so forth. Just number 1.
Yep.
Secondly, he would be enjoying his holidays. He will have his feet up somewhere, probably by the beach somewhere, enjoying some downtime with his family. I can't wait to disrupt that, upset his holiday routine. And
get him in trouble with Gretchen, I'm sure.
She probably has a whole day planned out for him and the kids. But we're going to give him a call. Hopefully he picks up, and we'll see exactly what he is doing.
No, fantastic. When we come back, we'll speak to the scoring machine. Okay, back here on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle, and back to an old friend, the scoring machine, Sean Reddick. How do we find you, Sean? You're surviving the heat, and secondly, Merry Christmas.
Oh, Merry Christmas to you guys. Yes, trying to survive the heat. It's a little bit different weather than I'm used to back in Nebraska growing up on a Christmas. So I'm loving spending time at the beach, Christmas time, and a little bit of reprieve today, but it's been, enjoyable Christmas time.
How does your skin hold up? You're pretty fair skinned. Has your skin tone got used to the sun now, or how do you find it? Do you come home burnt most days?
Lots of sunscreen, all right. So didn't have to really put the sunscreen on growing up in Nebraska, but slip, slap, slop. They've got me in the WA lifestyle over here, so I spent all my Christmas budget on sunscreen, I think.
Don't worry about the tans. We're at the rig. I mean, you're retired now. You've been retired a few days. Are you still whipping that shirt off and feeling good about yourself? Or similar to me, have you enjoyed yourself a little too much since retiring?
Well, I've since COVID hit, I created my own little home gym. So I try and keep up with the young buck, but it's I think the scale is tipping a little bit more higher up each time I step on it these days.
Well, I created my own home gym as well, but it's collecting dust and that's about it. But it looks good. We're ready to go in case I ever do decide to give myself a kick up the bum. Hey, look, there's not a whole lot we can talk about over the last round, 2 games. So we might get into some more generic questions about the season as a whole and what you've seen so far and your thoughts.
Look, I think it has been tough. I think it's only going to get tougher over the next couple months. Trying to fit all these games in. Just seeing, it's got. You look at the NBA, it's just a bit of a microcosm of what's happening in the entire society. So the amount of players that the NBA teams are having us on, and just to be able to fill teams, I think there was a game today that Miami couldn't field 8 players, so they had to cancel their game today. So it's one of those scenarios where it's going to be which team can kind of keep everyone healthy and play the games. A bit unlucky with the Wildcats having to travel over and then, to get there 12 hours later, find out that the game's been canceled. So hopefully, for their sake, they're going to be able to get a lot of games in while they're away. But it's kind of tough to gauge so far, I find, with the teams. It's a bit up and down. And, I think the Wildcats and Melbourne United and probably the Phoenix are playing the best so far, or Illawarra. But I think after that, it really drops away.
Yeah, I think we do have, Tasmania, our first time in the league. It's great to see them notch up a couple of wins. But I think Tassie, Cairns with Machado out in particular, that just really hurts them.
Breakers,
and everyone's got excuses, don't get me wrong, but those 3 between core players, an inaugural club, and a team spending the whole season on the road, they've got some pretty good reasons.
And Adelaide look poor too, and they've got no reason for it.
They're the real surprise. I think they're Australian. And Sean, you came up against Daniel Johnson a lot. What do you make of their Australian contingency? And is it the imports letting them down, or there's the chemistry? Where do you see Adelaide's downfall currently, albeit early stages?
I think they're just trying to find their identity. I think for the longest time, especially under Joey Wright, and it probably suited their personnel, they were trying to outscore people and get 90 to 100. When we were scouting them, it was just literally run back on D. You may not even go for an offensive rebound because you just wanted to stop their transition. So, they had a year under Connor, and so I think they're trying to find themselves. Sunday Detch being out, I think that has hurt them. I think he's kind of that glue guy that they need. Mitch Mccarron, he's been okay, but he hasn't probably, I kind of thought him coming over from Melbourne when they had really a stacked team, I thought he would take a little bit maybe more scoring role than we saw in the past.
We talked about that last week. He's been really passive offensively, hasn't he?
Yeah, and I think when he came into the league, he was a 3-man. I remember he was, you couldn't box him out. He was getting offensive rebounds, and he's kind of one of those guys that can do a lot of little things. But, I think for that team to be successful, he needs to probably be a little bit more aggressive offensively as well. A little 1-2 game between him and Daniel Johnson could be what they need, I think, as well.
Yeah, I think I do agree with the identity. And I think Mitch, I'd love to see him play off the ball a little bit, because I'm for pin down into a curl, playing in the on balls. But when you're the point guard, and you got, guys like Humphreys, Johnson, obviously the imports, sometimes you get caught up in your own head as, do I have to run plays for them 80% of the time? And do I get to do something for myself? Or is it, how do you juggle it? I just want him to be in scorer's mode and put him on a wing, more of that 2-1 combo opposed to being a straight point guard. But I'm not a coach, and I'm sure
maybe that's where Sunday coming back helps. Yeah. Where Sunday can do a lot of that ball carrying.
Yeah, and I think you will, because Sunday can play point, facilitate, and then pick up full court, turn them twice in the backcourt, play 90 feet. But no, there's still plenty of talent on that roster, and I love CJ as a head coach. I'm sure he'll do good things for the rest of the season. Standouts for new imports, Sean. I love getting your take. Someone like a Franks in particular. How would you guard someone like a Robert Franks, or going into the key, and you got a couple of 7-footers out there these days, 7'2" and 7'5".
We spoke to Laos last week, and Laos didn't want to go anywhere near the paint.
He said he was picking and popping if he was playing against those boys. But what's your take on some of the new guys in the league, in particular the bigs?
Yeah, I love Franks. Yeah. He is, if Brisbane haven't put a 2-3 year deal to him by the end of January, I'd be very surprised. I didn't know a lot about him, but the first time I watched him play against the Wildcats, and I was really impressed. And he can just do everything out on the court. And you look at there's no real weaknesses. I mean, usually a guy like that is super athletic and can score in the paint. You can't shoot, but he can flat out shoot the 3 ball as well. So I think he's looking like he could be an all-NBL player, and someone I could see, depending on what happens. But he's kind of that perfect prototypical 4-man in the NBL. He may not get a lot of looks just because he's 6'8" in the NBA, but he's a guy that could play in the NBL for a long time. So I loved seeing the matchup between him and Vic Law. That was fun. Damo, you were there on the sideline. What was Vic Law chomping at Brisbane every time he scored?
Well, it was more at Patterson, and then at the bench. So I think there must have been a knock about his 3-point shooting or something like that, because it was the threes in particular he seemed to take great pleasure in reminding the bench that he can flat out play. But then even at one stage, Franks and Patterson were both doing some damage at the offensive end, and I think Scott wanted to put Law on Franks. Patterson had scored back-to-back, and he was like, no, I've got Patterson. So, you love that, rivalry. You love guys that want to be able to step up to the plate in those circumstances. And Law pretty much flat out told Morrison, no, give me another shot on him. And he did a good job. But yeah, it was personal out there, and it was great to see, courtside doing a bit of commentary, and they're just having a bit of chirp at each other. And I dare say a few messages were exchanged after the game once the Wildcats got the dub.
Well, we're probably lucky that we had crowd there, because I remember the game where they didn't have the crowd when they played the Sydney Kings, and you could just hear everything was happening out on the court. So I think they would have had to tone down the mics. I think they might have to tone down the mics for all the coaches this year. I think there's been a few please explain emails being sent after a lot of games when they're going into these timeouts. I think a lot of these rookie coaches aren't realizing the mics are live.
They really are on. They really are on.
Especially the American coaches. They're just not used to it.
No, it's incredible that the footage can go in there and not just watch the players, but actually hear the coaches. I think it's great access.
Greg Vanderjagt was very unhappy that the camera was filming James Duncan's stand-up timeout too. He wanted the cameraman nowhere near them.
Yeah, no, for those listeners out there, if you ever see a coach standing up at a timeout, it means there's not allowed to have any footage and definitely no mics. You don't have footage but no mics.
You can film it.
You can film it but no mics.
But Big Greg, the 7-footer, he didn't even want any footage of it at all.
No, it means the players are about to cop a spray, and it's not fit for anyone's ears listening in.
Now, Damo talked about some imports, Sean. I want to get your thoughts on the two with the Sydney Kings. Obviously, Jarrell Martin's playing well, but we've hardly seen Jalen Adams or RJ Hunter at all. We're 5 rounds into the season. How much time do you give them? In a normal year, if you could have brought replacements in, do you think you would have already?
Oh, look, I think it's tough. And they've been so up and down as well. And then, not having Vasiljevic for a few games and him kind of working himself into shape as well. But they're going to, that team there, they really need their imports to fire. So it'll be interesting. I think if you do make a change, it's going to have to be, fairly soon. You don't want to be losing too many games, and you just want to get that chemistry right as well. I mean, a lot of these teams haven't been able to get their normal preseason games, so you're kind of learning on the fly these first 4 or 5 rounds. But you don't want to leave it too. I mean, with the borders opening, it probably gives you a little bit longer. You can make that change. But the fact that they haven't made that change, they must have seen something they really like in the trainings that they have been able to see them play. So hopefully they're taking that long term gain. But it's tough when you got 2 guys down like that. They have Jarrell Martin has played well, but they need a little bit more. And for a team that wants to get up and down and play high tempo and almost try and outscore their opponents, they're actually not scoring that many points. So they're going to need a little bit more scoring power if they're going to play that style of basketball.
Now, Sean, you've obviously high basketball IQ. You're still involved with Reddick Academy, with the commentary. Would you ever put your hand up to take on more of an official coaching gig with the Wildcats or any team in the NBL?
Look, I don't. I've been asked that question over the years.
You've been asked that a lot by me, haven't you?
Pike usually likes to throw that at me once a year, but I really enjoy the coaching side of it, and I'm enjoying the youth side. And I have talked to a few coaches that have kind of made that transition from saying the youth side up into the professional, and there's been a bit of mixed bag on what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy. I think also my son, he's 11, so being able to go to his games and coach him and being part of a club at like Fair Lakes Hawks has been
Can you
a lot of fun.
please start teaching him how to pass?
Hey, you don't get across. You don't get recruited to come from America to Australia to pass the ball.
All I know is Greg High has a son who's 3 or 4, and I know Dylan will never pass it to him either. It's just in that bloodline between the 2 families.
Poor Greg, that was his only chance of a dunk that you denied him.
Mate, he wasn't going to dunk it. I don't care what Greg tells you. Yes, there was an instance where I kicked ahead to Sean. Maybe technically Greg was 10 metres ahead of Sean, wide open. Greg claims that had he been past the ball, he was going to get his first and only NBL dunk. Sean went down and dunked it instead. The crowd went nuts, and Greg's never forgave him. But
let's be honest. This was towards the end of my career. I didn't get very many opportunities to dunk either. That might have been my only dunk of the season as well. So, sometimes I did a quick calculation in my head, and I figured out, what? I've just got to do it.
I've had this discussion with Matty Knight about the team we've assembled here for Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle about who could still dunk. Matty says he never could anyway. We're pretty sure Lowes probably can't anymore.
I don't know if any.
We're pretty
Sean's
sure
our only chance.
We're pretty sure Gibbo never could. Damo, you used to be able to. Matty agreed. You were probably the best dunker out of the bunch, but probably not now. Bevo certainly never.
Only
could.
if Luke Shencher is under the basket waiting for him.
Well,
Love the 7-footer.
But Sean, are you our last hope, Sean? Can you still dunk?
Look, I still at the end of my camps, I always get the kids asking me to dunk. I always tell them, you got to wait till the last day. I have moved to a size 5 basketball. I have to have it really, really deflated. Don't tell the campers this. It's got to be deflated so I can really grip it. I still have been able to, even though I thought once I reached 40, I was definitely done. But there's going to come, I reckon it's going to be soon where I'm going to go up to try and dunk and not be able to pull a hammy or a calf or something.
I remember when they brought in the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary team, James Crawford.
That's right.
In his 50s, two-hand reverse slam is easy. Like the Alabama slammer still has it. But I don't think this team is going to
and let's be honest. He used to hit his, he used to touch the top of the backboard.
Yeah, that guy.
You and I, Damo, we just barely get over the rim. We were just happy to dunk. He's doing windmills, reverse.
Sean, you mentioned Reddick basketball. My Christmas at home, Damo, you don't know this. So I went to see my family on Christmas, and we gave out our presents. And have a guess what? All 3 of my sister's kids, my mum, my sister, and Laura, they all opened up and they got Reddick basketball T-shirts. And,
it was bad Santa gifts. Santa.
No, sure. Now, it was quite a Christmas, Sean. It's pretty special. I think I'm going to get the whole family together and everyone's going to be around the table wearing a Reddick basketball
Look, I'll
shirt.
continue on that because I go to camp still and clinics still, and these aren't Reddick Academy clinics. These are, run by different people.
Yeah.
And I'd look around, and there's as many Reddick Academy shirts as there are Bryce Cotton jerseys. It's incredible, mate, for all the listeners out there. And don't be humble, because I think it's amazing what you're doing. Can you take us through what Reddick Academy is, or Reddick basketball is, through the before school hours to the clinics to the camps themselves? Because it's amazing what you're giving back to the sport.
Yeah, well, it all kind of started towards the end of my career. Still wanted to be involved in basketball, and my daughter was playing netball at the time, and every single one of her friends were playing netball. And I asked them if they wanted to play basketball, and they all told me no. So I thought, well, we've got to change that, and so yeah, we started running the programs at the local primary schools. I think we've got about 40 primary schools at the moment. I think I had a Christmas party with all my coaches. We had I think 25, and had another 5 or 10 that couldn't make it. So we've got, we're slowly building up basketball to where I think it should be. And, we're seeing some explosion with interest. I think one from, the success of, especially here in WA, the Wildcats and all the work that, the club has done throughout the years, but also just the fascination with the NBA, the Boomers, Patty Mills. I think just basketball. And, it's one of those games where there's a lot of highlights. So you're getting social media, everyone, I don't personally use TikTok, but apparently they tell me TikTok, everyone's, watching all the videos. So I think there's just this explosion with basketball, and we're playing a small part of it, and, be able to see the kids pick up a basketball, and it's fun now. We're seeing a lot of them. We're running for 4 years now, and some of those that started in year one, they're playing, playing wobble now and playing at a really high level, and you're just seeing the impact of just picking up a basketball when they're in year one, and dribbling around, giving them one to take home, and it's one of those great sports where you can play at home as well. And so it's fun. We're seeing just taking the game to them, and we're enjoying just watching the kids grow and fall in love with the sport that you and I fell in love with as well.
Yeah, and then come school holidays, I think you got 3 different stadiums between Lords, Perry Lakes, the Bendo Basketball Centre, and a third one. You're booking out as well, which is brilliant. And I see you doing some individuals as well. So,
well, Sean, just on that, what camps do you have planned for these school holidays?
Yeah, we've got a little bit of break, which I'm enjoying at the moment. But yeah, we've got camp at Bendat, and then another one at Lords that same week, and then the following week got our Wobble kids at Bendat, and then we've got another one at Lords as well, going kind of a satellite because it was filling up. So
I'm not sure we can even promote it for you, though. They're sold out, aren't they? I don't think we can even try to sell it for you.
You've got to get on the waiting list, Damo. We'll try. We'll see if we can fit you in, but we. Yeah, it is popular, and I think it's a big thing that basketball and indoor sport. Parents can come watch a game in an hour. It's I think if Basketball Australia, I think they're doing some great things. Basketball WA, if everyone does their part, I think basketball could overtake AFL, especially here in WA, with the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I'm biased, obviously, but we're going from second most popular sport in the world to I think we can be number 1 in Australia because of you play year round. There's not as many head knocks. There's different things for parents to love, hand-eye coordination.
Unless you're Matty Knight.
Yeah. We really do have to talk to him about that. Look, mate, before we let you go, one of the segments we have is when we give away our awards, Defensive Player of the Year, MVP, which obviously you vote on. And the other one is the Galen Award winner. Obviously, you're a teammate with Galen Young back in 2009-10, and we've dedicated an award to just kind of the best teammate of the week during the play. And I'll hand it over to Pike. He comes up with the nominations. Normally, I give the winner, but I thought being a teammate of Galen's, if you want to quickly reflect on your memories of Galen and then give this week's award, that'd be great. Yeah,
so Sean, I came up with this award to pay tribute to Galen, and we talked about after his tragic passing last year, obviously how much he meant to everybody. So it's kind of the best team man, the best glue man, and when I feel like that's what he was to that 2010 championship team, but we don't have many games to choose from last weekend. So the nominees are a little bit thin, but I reckon you might be able to pick out of Xavier Cooks, Clint Steindl, Sam McDaniel, Fabian Krislovic, Wani Swaka Lobaluk, and Matthew Dellavedova. From the 2 games we saw last weekend, did someone stand out as the guy that was that ultimate team man?
Yeah, I mean those. I mean, I love the award. I think it's something that doesn't give enough attention to. And you're right, Galen, that year especially. I mean, for us to be able to have that combination between starting Shincher and then come back with Galen, especially when teams tried to go into that on ball and one of the strongest guys that I've played against. So just did all those little things that championship team needs. One guy I was really impressed with, and probably has kind of come out of nowhere, was Wani Swako. He played outstanding, just did some little things. So he'd probably get my award for this week if you're happy to take my my vote there.
I'm very happy with that, because he's a guy who lost his contract to the Wildcats, was out of the league and signed as an injury replacement at the Kings, and I would have thought that they are very quick to now sign him up, and they want him very much part of their future going forward.
Beautiful right-hand rip dunk as well.
It was huge.
Nice little, and he's a young WA talent.
Yep.
He and Luke Travers grew up together, and just some great state teams they were a part of, and national teams. Yeah, Wani's going to have a hell of an NBL season. This was a minor setback, getting cut from the Wildcats, not getting renewed more so. And I think he's going to go and do bigger and better things. But we'll take it on board, Shawnee, and we'll go ahead and we're not giving out any other awards this week. There's only been 2 games, but I figured while we've got you, we'll give out the game.
They might have to do a double. Quick question for you, Damo. What do you think, Travers, where do you think he'll end up possibly NBA next year? Do you think he gets drafted? Do you think he needs another year of development? Where do you see it?
Yeah, there's a lot of development to go still, but I think his best bet, and an NBA team that wants him, the best bet is to get him over there now. So, he's shown what he's capable of doing. The hardest thing for him is the roster the Wildcats have is where do you fit him in particular, once Blanchfield's fit, Nordo's back, Hodgson's out there, because he's, at the end of the day, he's still only, 21, 22? Like, he's young, but he's 6'8" with handles, great passing, hell of a rebounder, shot blocker. So if I was an NBA guy, draft him second round, get him in there, work him out every day. If he can knock down that shot beyond the arc on a regular basis, then all of a sudden you've got a 6'8" point guard that uses the on-ball well and will facilitate. And if no one collapses down onto him, and get all the way to the ring and dunk the ball or a little floater. So I'd be getting him over there now if I'm a GM and just saying, all right, let's have you live in the gym. You're going to be our point guard. We've got to work on these weaknesses, but the NBA has those resources to put 3 hours into a shooting coach, a rebounder, so on and so forth, opposed to the Wildcats right now where, you're traveling, you're in lockdowns, you're delaying games, you're in a deep roster. I think the NBA, he'll actually be a better fit in the NBA, which I know sounds a bit silly, but he'll be a better NBA player, I think, eventually, than he is in the NBL, just with the style of play and his ability once he gets into his mid-20s.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think, even playing in the G League, under Matty Nielsen or someone where he can still get some of those game reps, I think that's going to be important for him as well. It's great that he's getting some minutes with the Wildcats that past year, and then this year as well, got a little bit more responsibility, but it's going to be harder once they get their full roster. But being able to get over there and maybe, and then you get your opportunity, right? So
if he was there right now, he might get a 10-day contract. You just never know.
Yeah, just being there. I mean, You look at Giddy. Giddy went to a team where he was always going to play minutes. He was always going to be the point guard. And they're different style of players, don't get me wrong, but I think Travers, even though he can play 1 through 4 in any league around the world, I think it'll be more so the ball in his hands, facilitator. Whereas right now he doesn't always have that, because your best players on the team are still Bryce Cotton, who needs the ball in his hands, Vic Law, who needs the ball in his hands, Nordo when he comes back, so on and so forth. Yep. Giddy got that from day one. I agree, Shawnee. I think get him over the G League, say, mate, you're the point guard now. This is a development league in a lot of ways for the NBA teams. Let's just see what we can do. And if he's good enough, he'll flourish and he'll be given a contract. If not, then maybe we see him back here, but I'd be giving him an opportunity, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. He just does so many of those little things that from someone that really enjoys the little intricacies of the game, just to watch him play and his impact is fun to watch. And then you think about how old he is. It's pretty scary to me.
Did you ever consider growing a mullet like that, Sean?
Well, yeah. What is going on with that? Is this really happening? Is that the new style coming back?
It seems like
you and I have had the same hairstyle for about 30 years. But are we going to have to grow the mullet?
Stay strong, mate. Everything comes back into fashion every 20 to 30. So considering you and I have had our same haircut for 20 odd, and it's any day now. The mullet will have its time, then it'll be back to short back and sides, and you and I will be the fresh look.
So we're just leading the charge for the next hairstyle, right?
I'm going to go with an undercut. Surely it's due to come back as well. And just quickly, I agree with what you said about the intricacies of what he does bring to the game. LT, some of the big time rebounds he gets, he's well above the ring. Some of the block shots, the help side, the deflections. He reminds me of Jack White, even though Jack White plays the 4 spot. Before Jack got injured with Melbourne, now Melbourne went on to win the championship. They were the deepest roster by a mile, but he was still averaging the most minutes as a rookie. And it's just because they're better when he's out on the floor. And that's with LT. LT may not have a great shooting game, but you'll still see him play decent minutes because he does those little things that, Sean, you said you appreciate. And obviously Scott Morrison does, and he does. He just makes his teammates better by being out there. And I think an NBA team will see that.
He reminds me of a little bit taller, more athletic Glenn Saville.
Yeah, great call. Yeah.
Kind of just does all those little things. Not particularly the best scorer, but can score. And I think to me that's kind of his game. And if he keep improving, he'll I think he'll has a huge future ahead of him.
Another guy that you had lots of run-ins with too, Sean. So nice memories to reflect on. Now, Sean, how much trouble have we got you in with Gretchen for delaying your lunch right now?
Well, no trouble. I'm just going to have to reheat it, I think. That's all right. These days, it's Groundhog's Day. I've got to get ready to go back to the beach tonight. So it's all good.
Go heat up your lunch, mate. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Okay, thank you to the scoring machine for that. And Damo, as I promised at the start of the show, we talked to Sean about those Christmas presents I got, and Sean was pretty proud of them, wasn't he? He was very proud that he made everyone's Christmas in my family. But as I said, I'm not sure that those shirts are going to get much wear.
Mate, I'm coming over with a lighter and some petrol and sending him the footage of me happily burning. No, he's doing a lot for basketball in WA in particular. The whole Pike family rocking Reddick basketball shirts. We might have to get it up on our socials as a bit of proof. But yeah, next year, let's see if we can get you something a little bit better for the kids.
I actually got all three of them a pair of the Gaze shoes as well. And
I love that.
And I mentioned it to Andrew Gaze. He was very proud.
Yeah, Gaze and Red is 2 all-time greats. I love that Gaze still has his shoes.
It's fantastic.
He's brilliant.
The only thing I was disappointed with, one of the kids cut the tag off their shoes, and it had a picture of Andrew Gaze on it and a list of all his accomplishments. And I tried to get him to read it and say, look, this is who these shoes are. He's a legend. He went and threw the tag straight in the bin. And that was it. Didn't care. Did not care.
We'll have to get you to bring that tag in. Gazy, everyone knows Gazy's the GOAT, but sometimes you forget just how many accolades he has. He really was a step above everyone else. He's incredible. We'll have to read those numbers out next show.
Let's talk about something serious for a second, Damo. We don't talk a lot about WNBL on this show, but there was something quite incredible that happened. I don't know how much you're across it, so I'll try to fill you in as much as I can, but there was an integrity breach that had to be dealt with. So the coach of the Canberra Capitals, Paul Goris, was obviously talking with the referee, Simon Kosier, and trying to get some clarification on the way they were calling certain things. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they deliberately planned it to be what it was, but so the referee, Simon Kosier, sent Paul Goris some footage of a Sydney Uni Flames training session that the referees had been overseeing to help with some calls.
Yep.
Obviously, that team is coached by Shane Heal, and Shane Heal and the Sydney Flames, understandably, very unhappy that their training footage, which they felt was very much sacrosanct and not to be seen by the opposition coach. They did play a game not long after that, and the Capitals won the game, so they felt like they got the heads up. Basketball Australia dealt with it by suspending the referee Simon Kosier for the rest of, I think, for 12 months, so up until the end of 2022. And Paul Goris just for January. So he's suspended for January, and then he can resume his duties both as Opal's coach and as the coach of the Capitals. I don't know if you follow this closely, but what's your reaction to it?
I actually hadn't heard that till now. So clearly both knew they were leaking footage they shouldn't have, or have they claimed that, no, this was training video that we knew was getting sent to the NBLs, that the NBL referees, WNBL refs, that the refs could use, or have they just cut up footage and sent it on to an opposing coach?
I feel like Kosher had the footage because it was a Flames session, and he probably didn't. I feel like he didn't think that what he was sending was anything wrong, and he was just showing Paul Goris, this is the way we're going to be officiating. But from a Flames perspective, they felt that they were going to be able to work out what they were running and their sets and what they were training. So you never know what anyone's thinking. If you give them the benefit of the doubt, it was innocent. But if you don't give them the benefit of the doubt, it's blatant cheating at its worst.
Well, there is a reason why you have closed door sessions. You know, you don't want to give away secrets to opposing teams, potentially people sitting in the crowd.
And we already saw what the Kings thought of the Hawks' supposed spying already.
The owner happened to be in the building.
Same owner.
Yeah, exactly.
The Kings owner is the same owner as the Flames.
So it's a tough one because the reality is anyone that wants to go and watch a Wildcats training, this is pre-COVID, it's different rules now. Pre-COVID, anyone could walk in and essentially watch training if you gave the manager a heads up. You know,
actually, it was amazing. If you look at the Wildcats, Rob Beveridge had very much an open shop. Trevor Gleeson, the very much opposite. You had plenty of closed door sessions with Trevor's coach, but not so much with Bevo.
Yeah, and everyone is different. You know, nowadays a lot of it's more closed, and that's totally fine because training in particular, that's your inner sanctum. That's where you can get away with, you know, talking a certain way, running set plays, which may be a potential game-winning set, defensive strategies, so on and so forth. So even though we can go into timeouts, huddles, you know, whatever we want during a game, it is different because the prior 5 days has been focused on producing it on that game night. So that's the end result of 5 hard days. Yeah, I know that if we had footage leaked about a game plan, I say we as in the Wildcats, I know I've got to try and remove myself, but we would be livid. Because you allow someone in there to learn and grow as a coach, or in this case, grow as a referee. You don't expect them to run with that footage and go and share it with someone else.
Especially the coach that you're playing against.
Exactly
in
right.
Next game.
It seems like a tough punishment though. A year?
Yeah.
That's, that to me feels like it was more knowingly sent it on opposed to a complete accident. But I honestly, I don't know enough about the story. I can only go off, I'd be livid if I had footage leaked from our training that was not granted to be shared with other people.
The only thing we can go off is Shane Heal's reaction. He clearly feels that the Capitals, a big reason why they beat his Flames team in that game was because of the footage that they received. So that's how Shane Heal feels about it. He was the coach. He knows more about it than us. He feels the punishments, especially for Paul Goris, was well and truly under. But that's all we can go on.
Hey, and we haven't seen suspensions like this in a long time. This is incredible. So I dare say that's the longest we've seen. At least in my playing days.
I can't think of anything like that either. I mean, an integrity breach just reads pretty serious, doesn't it? When you just see that written on the sheet of paper, it doesn't have good implications.
No, and to be honest, this stuff happens a lot. Insofar as maybe not from a referee to an opposing coach. But there is a lot of scouting reports that get left or get leaked. A lot of footage. You know, I know I've played overseas, and you know there's cameras in there that aren't hidden as well as they should have been. So it's kind of part and parcel sometimes when you play abroad in particular. But you know, it does happen on our own shores, and you know, inevitably with how technology is these days, if someone wants to go and cheat and risk it, you know, you've got to pay the consequences. This one, I think it's a little bit more innocent than flat out blatant cheating, but
you hope so. We hope so because we don't want people that are cheating in our sport.
And I know Gory from my days at the AIS. He's a good guy. I haven't seen him in 10 odd years, but
he's a championship winner in the WNBL. He's the national coach. I mean, he's
a good dude.
Yeah. Little bit lighter note. Some good news for some players that we've seen out in the NBL. So obviously there's a lot going on with the COVID protocols in the NBA, but it's great to see. Cam Oliver signed a 10-day deal at the Atlanta Hawks. Scotty Hobson with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Kiefer Sykes, who we saw at the Phoenix last season, with the Indiana Pacers. Great to see.
I absolutely love it, and I don't want this to come across as negative, but Kiefer Sykes, oh man, when he was going, he was as fun to watch as anyone. But if you're Bryce Cotton, and the biggest knock on him was, you know, size, you're a scorer, not a lot of similar styles of play to Sykes, but Bryce, in my opinion, does it better.
Yeah, I agree.
Do you hear that another guy, your height, that you've played against, that you've got an MVP against, you know, gets signed in the Indiana Pacers? Or do you say, you know what, he went to the G League, he took that gamble, he backed himself, I've stayed here in Perth.
Yeah.
You know, or it doesn't faze him at all. Instead, he's like, no, good on you, keeper. That's great news for the NBL, great news for you, great news for your family, and he moves forward. Like,
it's a great point, because I would have thought just about every import that's out here right now would be thinking the same thing, that if I stayed back home, I could be in the NBA right now.
I'm going to get a call up. You know, if you're decent in the G League, you'll get a call up at some stage. Or you might get a full contract. So, yeah, it's definitely one of those things that's going to be a hurdle to overcome for the NBL with the next stars, trying to get these young guys out here to get them ready for the NBA, when right now the NBA is calling up a plethora of players and going deep into the roster now.
I thought about asking Sean this question, but I didn't want to stroke his ego too much. So I'll ask you it instead. Do you feel like if this was happening right now, you were at the peak of your career, you would get an NBA call-up?
I would be knocking on every GM's door. I don't think anyone's opening up. The funny thing about the G League is, and I've spoken to an NBA scout about this, is if you're in the G League longer than a year, usually GMs are thinking, okay, there's a problem with him if he hasn't been called up. So that's the big risk you do take. And I was chatting to this scout about Franks, and I said, I think this guy's flat out NBA ready. And he said, look, he's on the cusp. Everyone knows about him, but because he had 2 seasons, I want to say, in the G League, GM's like, well, why hasn't he made it already? Now, I think the club's just flat out got it wrong, or he's still in his developing years. But I think someone like a Franks in particular, if he was in the G League, even though he's been there, if he now that he's done just a few weeks out here showing what he's capable of, he'd be back on those scouts top of the list going, all right, he really is the next one we'd call up, but he's in Australia, can we do it? So I think someone like him that's now left, dominated, if he came back, he'd be someone they'd call up again. But that is the risk you take by being in the G League is, let's go with someone younger, someone fresh, someone we haven't seen, opposed to giving someone a crack that's been right in front of them this whole time.
Great point. I had a similar discussion with Dusty Hanners, the 36ers import, and he felt like he had stayed in the G League perhaps too long. So that's why he wanted to come somewhere fresh, and he was sick of the close calls. He had signed a deal last, I think it was April, to go to an NBA team. Something happened with COVID and they ended up needing a big, and they signed a big in his spot. He missed out on the deal, and that's when it clicked for him that I need something fresh and I need something different. And he's come out to the NBL, and he's someone, if he stayed where he was, he could be in the NBA given his shooting, but he decided to take this path and probably a little bit more stability and probably a bit safer too. So, yeah, I think you make a great point, Damo. Not a whole lot to preview for this round. We've gone from, I think, having 6 or 7 games that we were expecting in round 5. We were expecting to have a big New Year's Eve and a big New Year's Day and a big January 2. It's now very much disjointed. But Friday night, this is a place you spent a couple of your New Year's Eve.
I've had 3 New Year's Eve games I've been.
You would have. The Cairns Taipans are very proud of their New Year's Eve game. They make it a big deal. They'll put on a good show. What will happen on the court though between the Taipans and the Wildcats?
I think the Wildcats will take care of business. Expect to see Matty Hodgson return. Yes. We must be getting close for Nordo.
And no Machado still.
And more so no Machado. That's just a huge loss. Expect Nate Jawa to have a big game. I think that he's going to see the ball a lot. I know that he took advantage of that in the preseason. He was really good against the Wildcats. But I just think the Wildcats' depth, Vic Law, the way Vic's playing, Bryce, I think the Wildcats will win. And win by a solid margin.
Who does McCall go to? Does he go to Law or does he go to Cotton?
He'll start. I think he'll start with Law. There's no separating those 2 players at the moment. Both are top 5 in MVP voting as far as I'm concerned. And just because McCall's that bigger body, you'll throw him on Law. See if some of your younger guys can get under the skin of Bryce. They won't be able to. Bryce doesn't get rattled by anyone. But if he's having a great shooting night, expect to see McCall switch to him pretty early on. Jared Kenny was a teammate of Bryce's. He's been there, guarded him a lot. Yep. They'll throw double teams at him to try and get the ball out of his hand. They'll go one-on-one ball with whoever McCall is guarding and play team basketball, and whoever McCall isn't guarding, team defensive basketball. So they've got a big night and big task ahead of them. But in Cairns, they do get a lot of wins. They are tough to beat.
I think it's something like, because they didn't play at the convention centre last season, I think it's something like they've won 19 of the last 21 at the convention centre.
Yeah.
I think 9 in a row it might be by now.
No, it is. You get to Cairns, and like any home court, there's home court advantage, but Cairns really do seem to make the most of it. We're not considering last year. Last year was different. New arena.
Yep.
But they're back home with Oberlin.
Did Joe Blake ever have a sign with you on it? Did he ever have some sort of a Damian Martin pun?
No, the person he got after the most was Martin Catalini. Cat played up in the Taipans. He was MVP for him. He was brilliant up there. But he did get a DUI. And so I remember the snake, the Taipan, Jake the Snake, he came out and he pretended to be a police officer. And while we're in a timeout, he was trying to get Cat to take a breathalyzer, and you couldn't help but have a giggle. So, no, he got after Cat. He gets after a few players.
I love those mascots. I love the croc up in Townsville too. He did a great job. The old 100% croc, I think he was. He did a great job. Only one more game now. We go from New Year's Eve to New Year's Day. The JackJumpers at home to Melbourne United. This is a big task for Tasmania.
Yeah, it is, and I think Melbourne will take care of business, and they'll be expected to take care of business. These are the ones you really do need to notch up on the road. You want to win every game at home and win at least 50% on the road, and they would consider a must-win against the Tassie JackJumpers. We'd love to see Tassie get one done, another win at home, but Melbourne, reigning Czech premiers, playing great basketball at the moment. Dellavedova, I don't think we've spoken about him enough. He's just been so solid the last few weeks, doing absolutely everything at both ends. I just think they're going to be too strong.
I think so too. So that's it for this round. Let's hope nothing interrupts next week. We've got a full round to preview. Thank you to Hoop 7. Thank you to Tab Touch. Did you get anything for Christmas from Hoop 7, Damo?
I didn't, but I'll be down there just to purchase some presents. Those that I haven't seen yet, they still owe. I wait for the Boxing Day sales, I'll head on down there and go for some great basketball.
Now, I did get a pair of shoes. The first thing I asked was, did these come from Hoop 7? And I got an answer in the affirmative. So very, very proud that I've
rocking them. That's
very, very happy that I've trained my family well. Now, Damo, this is our last show for the year, so Happy New Year to you. What does a New Year's Eve look like for a young family now for you when you can't go out because all the New Year's Eve parties are cancelled unless you're, I don't know, heading to Gloucester Park? I think that's about the only thing allowed. So what does your New Year's Eve look like, and what can we expect in our first show of next year when we catch up with Bebo once more?
Yeah, looking forward to having a chat with Bebo. Originally, before obviously there was some rules brought in, I was going to get together with Greg High, his family, obviously Jesse Wagstaff's family. Jesse's on the road, so the rest of the family. And then another basketball friend, Brad Robbins as well, Brad's family. So 3 Wildcats, another mate. We're going to have a dress-up party. All of us put our nominations in the hat and had the little draw. And I'm not sure who came up with it. I want to say it was Ainsley Hire, Greg's wife. So it's supposed to be a pajama party with all the kids, all the mums and dads. Now I think we'll just be at home relaxing, use my neighbour's pool again, and I'll be asleep by 9. So we'll see how we go.
Fantastic. Thanks, Damo.
Happy New Year.